なたと
Hello everybody, Shinjo here, welcome back to the channel, and to the next episode of Let's Talk Anime. Probably, I'm not going to say it, because I always say the same thing when I record Let's Talk Anime, but I'm not going to say it this time. Instead, we're going to get right in with the topics, and the first one is an anime that a lot of people are probably really looking forward to leading up to it beginning. Witch Hat Atelier. So, at the moment when I'm recording this, it is still airing. There are still maybe like 5 episodes left in the season. I can't remember when. And I've only seen up to episode 7. Just to give context to anybody that may not know episode 7, the last thing I saw was Coco and Agat being captured by the, the Brim Caps, I think it's called? Right after that whole big thing happens and Agat tries to be the hero and things like that. I'll get into the characters later. Just as a frame of reference, that's the last thing that I saw. So, just in case anything changes or not, that's what I've seen. And I feel like the first thing to discuss is the magic system. It's so interesting. It makes it really easy to understand too, because you can just draw a circle, but if you don't connect it, then it means nothing. And that's really clever, because you can just like have one set up, and then when you need it, you can just whip it out, complete the circle, and then you can do the magic. But I think the best part that I can discuss with Witch Hat is the characters. Now, obviously, characters are important for every story, but I have a good amount to say about each character, and rather than say specific things, or generic things, I should say, I feel like it'd be better to touch on each of the characters. So I feel like it's fair to start with Keyfrey. Keyfrey's a really interesting character. He certainly has some, I don't want to say baggage. There's certainly something going on with him about not entirely agreeing with the higher-ups, which makes a lot of sense in anime, because the higher-ups are either evil or not really trustworthy. But Keyfrey is a character that's really a nice mentor to the girls, and makes it more realistic on why they would be drawn to him. And I guess while I'm at it, I'll just go in reverse order on my list. Next up, Agat. Agat's a really interesting character. I can kind of see why she isn't the hugest fan of Coco. Their personalities are just too different. And for the first 5 or 6 episodes, I think it was, I really wasn't sure what to make of Agat. All I got was Agat. All I figured out was that she wasn't the biggest fan of Coco. She didn't like her at all, and just went to do things her own way, and was really stubborn about it. But the latest episodes that showed more on her backstory really got me interested. And moments like that are really cool, because while you can have just a blanket term for it, a jerk character, a character that doesn't agree with our protagonist, it's more interesting to see a character who's more fleshed out and more expanded upon. And that's what I really like about Agat. Now, yeah, I said I'm going to go in reverse order. I'll just keep going. Tetia. I really wanted to save Tetia for later, because I think that Tetia is my second favorite character in the show. And it may be because of her dub VA. Sarah does an amazing job as Tetia. But it may be, not maybe, it probably, more than likely, is the episodes where they were stuck in that little white room with that dragon, and she discussed how she wanted to make her own spell and everything going on with that. Even the little moment of Tetia looking at Coco and Coco thinking, shoot, she's blaming me for things. And they had a heart-to-heart about it later. Just moments like that are really cool. Plus, Tetsuya is just a fun character. I'm noticing as I get older that my favorite characters are quite basically a goofball. And in the nicest sense of the word, Tetsuya is a goofball. But again, like Agat, she's more than just one character trait. She's a lot more in-depth than that. Although, at the moment, I can't say the same about Riche. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right, I should say. But Riche, really weird comparison to make. She gives me the same vibes of Ferb from Phineas and Ferb, where she's just always there in the background, doesn't really say much, but she's really soft-spoken. But when she says something, you really pay attention. Really weird comparison to make, I know, but that's the closest thing that I can make to compare. But at the moment, there's not really much I can say about Riche. I'm sure if I looked on the original source material, there would be more in-depth on her personality, the other characters, why they act the way they do. But at the moment, there's not really much to go off of in the anime. Maybe, considering that they touched on Tetsuya and Agat's personalities earlier on, maybe the last half of the show focuses on Riche. It'll be nice, but I would be surprised if it does. But that brings me to the last one on the list. Coco. As far as Coco goes, she's a nice balance of just being in awe of magic. You can really tell that she fell in love with magic at a very young age. But she also has those really serious moments, like I mentioned earlier with that heart-to-heart with Tetsuya. But I really like her. I don't want to be that guy to say the protagonist is my favorite character, but I think Coco is up there. Honestly, maybe by the end of the show it may switch, because Tetsuya is really close to being my favorite character, just because of how much focus that she's gotten. But who knows, maybe it'll change. But that also leads me into the negative. So, I really don't have many negatives. I'm sure a lot of people are hesitant with the show because it's done by the same studio that did Zom 100 before. And that had a lot of delays, hiatuses. The anime started, I think it was the fall season that it came out. Maybe it was the summer season, honestly. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was the summer season. But I know that the anime got pushed, and the last 3 or 4 episodes got pushed to Christmas Day that year. So I'm sure a lot of people are hesitant on that. So far, I don't see any cracks that make it seem like there's any issues involving it. But I feel like it's only fair to bring it up, because if I don't, somebody else will. But as far as the actual show that I have any issue with at the moment is, like I mentioned earlier, I'm watching the dub of it. I don't even remember if I watched any of it subbed, but I just thought that this would be an interesting show to watch dubbed, especially since it's simul-dub. But the accents in the show make it a little bit hard for me to understand things. I'm not going to deny that it makes things interesting and unique, but it's just a little bit hard for me to fully grasp what they're saying. Although I suppose that's not really a complaint on the show, more just problem with my hearing. But at the moment, I don't really have much negative to say about Witch Hat. I'm sure that if I give it some time, I could make a case for it being, I don't want to say overrated, but like overhyped to an extent that people were really hyping it up, but it's just okay to me. But I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind, maybe I won't. Overall, Witch Hat Atelier, really good show. But as for the next show that I hopefully won't spend that long on discussing, is Akane-banashi. This is another one, I don't even think that people recommended this to me. I just figured it's a really good show, but I wanted to discuss it regardless. So to give context to anybody that isn't familiar with the show, basically we have Akane Osaki, I think is her full name. It starts out with her as a kid and her dad practicing Rakugo. Now, if you're not familiar with Rakugo, it's basically storytelling, I guess, to say it like that, in a simple way of explaining it. Although the show does a good job of explaining it as well. But she always idolized her father, always looked up to him, and there's this big moment where he could get promoted, I think, or something like that, and the bigger head honcho that's in charge of Rakugo, or something to that effect, just says, no, you all suck, you're all out of it, and just somehow banishes him from Rakugo. I don't remember the exact details. It's been a while since I've watched the first episode. And that devastates Akane. So much so that she decides to go do Rakugo herself and basically show up this person that screwed over her dad. Quite simply. And it just shows her journey through it all. And if you're not invested at that point, I don't know what to tell you. Because it has the hallmarks of a shonen without being a shonen. But the first thing that I really like is Akane. I hate to say this 2 times in a row, but she may be my favorite character, even though she's the protagonist. Not to say you can't have your favorite character be the protagonist, but it's just, she's a really good character. And she honestly reminds me of Momo from Dandadan, where she's an independent character who decides what she's gonna do, goes and does it, no matter if people say you can't do that or try to get in her way or anything like that. Really independent character, really stubborn character to an extent, and a really fun one at that. Really, really good character. Unfortunately, I can't remember many of the other characters. I know that obviously there's other characters around. There wouldn't be otherwise. Like, there's... Because I'm in the middle of watching the Karaku tournament right now. If you're watching the show, I just watched the guy that looks like Hantasero from My Hero Academia. I just watched his performance, and I'm not sure what to say about it. So I'm in the middle of that. He's an interesting character because I can't remember his name. But whatever. I think it's Kakeru? It's probably not Kakeru. But his whole thing is the Rakugo that he's familiar with is outdated and he wants to try and do it himself. And that's a really interesting character trait. I just hope that it keeps up and doesn't... The character itself isn't irrelevant later. But regardless, I'm waffling. The other thing that I like is, while I'm not entirely familiar with Rakugo, I know of it because of shows like Rakugo Shinju, and I think there's one where there's 4 girls that do it as well. I can't remember what it's called at the moment, but I have seen like snippets of those shows. But I enjoy them trying to get people invested in it when they may not understand the appeal of Rakugo. Heck, that's honestly a lot of the show itself where people don't understand it. But it's different enough from other shows like How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift, where both of them are showing you something. Danbaru kind of feels like a promotion where it's just trying to get weebs that watch the show to exercise, where this isn't outright saying you should go do this yourself. It's more entertainment. Although, silly thing to say considering that all of these anime are entertainment. But the negatives that I have about the show is, if you're not invested in Akane's story to show up this person that disowned her dad from the sport of Rakugo, then you're not going to care. If you're not invested in Akane's story, then you're not going to care about the show. Although you could say that about any sort of shonen as well. And I did touch on it earlier, but I really enjoy Akane. And there's 2 other people in the Karaku Cup right now. There's the one that I talked about earlier that looks like Hantasero. And there's this actress lady as well. I can't remember either one of their names at the moment. But it just feels like Akane's such a big character on the show that the other ones, I know who they are, but I don't remember them by name. And that may be just me not really paying attention to the characters outside of Akane, or it may be just that everybody else is unremarkable compared to her. Who knows? But regardless, still a really good show, and OP and ED, absolute bops. But I needed one more topic for this video, and I've decided, since I'm already discussing 2 seasonal anime that are new, why not discuss a third one? This is Demons of the Shadow Realm. That's actually really funny because I'm discussing 3 anime that are in the same season. I mean, I knew they were all new. It just clicked for me now that they were all in the spring season. I would say the current season, but it's probably not current when this video gets posted. But Demons of the Shadow Realm, it's a really interesting one. Because, like, you have Yuru, right? And he's lived in this farm backwards kind of place his whole life. And everything gets turned upside down because, like, this sister of his that's been locked up isn't actually his sister. They wanted to keep him here. There's a whole thing about it. I'm not going to explain it all. But the big thing that I'm sure that you would notice just from seeing the poster, it's the same person that made Full Metal Alchemist and Brotherhood by extension. But while the mangaka is the same, it feels different enough for me. Because Alchemist uses alchemy, magic, stuff like that. Where this one uses literal weapons. And while they do have, well, obviously they have demons, I feel like it's different enough because of the power system and everything like that. And outside of some of the character designs, because literally Yuru looks like he should be in Full Metal Alchemist. But outside of a few character designs, it feels different enough that it can stand on its own. And it's more just a fun little Easter egg if you know a Full Metal Alchemist, then you know that it's the same mangaka. And for me, the show itself is similar to Black Clover for me. It's a shonen, obviously, but while there's a lot of stigma about shonen are all boring because it's the same story over and over again, it's interesting enough that it keeps me interested in what's going to happen next. Because just to give context, let me pull this up. Because I'm pretty sure the last episode that I watched was episode 6, but I can't remember. It was... yeah, episode 6. The last thing that I saw was Yuru going to talk with Asa, and then they get attacked by those people, and between everybody there, they save the day. But it's different enough because while there's one episode where it ends with Yuru being trapped in this demon monster's mouth and everything, the next episode could end with, now we're at, I can't remember what the place is called, but now we're visiting Asa in her home, and we're all buddy-buddy now, more or less. There's a lot of layers to this story that I'm not sure where it's gonna go. But as for the things that I'm not really the hugest fan of, is, while I did mention it's similar to Black Clover, I'm really curious to see what's gonna happen, but there are always those shonenisms. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's always the overreactions and stuff like that. There's always those things that you see in a lot of shonens where, like, there's a brain-dead protagonist and things like that. But at the same time, I feel like it's a little bit more excusable with Yuru because he grew up in a place that didn't have airplanes, because he calls them dragons, and things like that. But a lot of it's just like, come on, Yuru, you should know not to do that. Because before he left, when he got wrapped up with everything involving Asa and everything, people literally told him, do not go anywhere, do not get captured, do not get in trouble. And what did he do? Although I guess at the same time, I can see where he's coming from because he's conflicted about everything. But, I don't know. There's just always those shonenisms with a lot of shonen. And also, I'm not really... Well, I am curious. It's not that I would love to go out of my way to watch episodes. But when I do watch it, I really do enjoy it. Also, best character, Hana-dano. Hano-dano? Whatever her name is. The girl with the black and pink hair. Really fun character. She mentioned... What's his name? Some celebrity. I can't remember. It gave me the same vibes of Itadori. Not Itadori. Maybe it was Itadori. Mentioning Jennifer Lawrence. I can't remember. It's Bradley something. I can't remember. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. That's just free publicity for the actor, and I'm not going to give him that. But, yeah, she's a really good character. I do want to end with that, because she's a really fun character, and she's honestly the voice of reason in a cast of idiots. But, yeah, again, I wouldn't say Demons of the Shadow Realm is bad. It's just... It's simple shonen to an extent, and if you're not in the business of watching that, then you're not gonna really care. But that is this episode of Let's Talk Anime. If it was all over the place, it's a combination of me not recording this in a while. I didn't want to say it because I promised myself at the start of the episode I wouldn't. But also, I literally just got up about 2 hours ago, but I had a lot of stuff to take care of, so I'm a little bit, spacey at the moment. But if you enjoy, hit that like button down below. If you have any other topics that you want me to discuss for Let's Talk Anime later, leave them down below, and if I can discuss them enough, then I will. But I'll see you next time. Momentai.